It's the Real Estate Podcast, across every state, city and town of Australia.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast, available on iHeartRadio and also Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. It is a Monday, back after the weekend. Hope it was a good one. If you were looking at property transacting over the weekend, I hope that all went nice and smoothly for you. Today, June the 27th. For 2022. Coming up, we're going to be discussing land tax in New South Wales. If you're celebrating a birthday for June the 27th, you're celebrating it with Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. He is celebrating his 46th birthday. Also coming up, Katie Lee is back with another prize piece to the huge getaway package that we are giving away to one lucky Breakfast Club member. Of course, it is to the Hunter Valley with 2 nights included, staying at the Mercure Resort. And of course, listen out for the secret word. You need 7 of these secret words to go into the competition. But coming up right now, let's have a look at your weather around Australia for this Monday morning.
It's the Main Centre forecast with propertybuyer.com.au.
All right, let's have a look at Sydney, and good morning to you. Expecting a shower or two for your Monday morning, a high of 17 degrees. Melbourne, cloudy but dry. Dry is the key component of today's weather and stuck on that 13-degree high. Brisbane, blue skies and 23, and in Perth, expecting a possible afternoon shower. And your high today is 22 degrees. Well, it seems it doesn't matter what day of the week or month it is, when people are searching for property, the number one thing they search for from a domain survey is a swimming pool. Yes, the swimming pool is king in number one position for searches, and it's rather surprising because Australian life was dramatically changed because of COVID and working from home. But the office was not a priority. The top 4 key searches on domain were pool in number 1 position. Number 2 was having a view. Of course, that's pretty important for a lot of people. Number 3 was waterfront. And in 4th position was a study.
We are just as addicted to property as you are. It's the Real Estate Podcast, across Australia, 7 days a week. Grab your coffee and switch on your real estate breakfast every weekday morning from 6:30.
Well, first home buyers are to receive some relief with stamp duty. The New South Wales government has a proposal to replace stamp duty with an annual land tax. The aim, of course, is to give some relief when buying property, especially to first home buyers. Stamp duty is charged as a lump sum on a percentage of the purchase price of a property, and has been one of the largest barriers for buyers entering the property market. The problem being is that it's being added to the cost of saving for the deposit. So let's discuss this a little bit more and welcome in mortgage broker from Archer Mortgages, Jazz Macca. Good morning, Jazz. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning, Craig. Same here, mate.
Now, tell me a little bit about how much of a welcome bit of news this is for first home buyers that you're talking to. What's their reaction been to this proposal?
Everyone I've spoken to really has been delighted with the new news, and I think they couldn't have it come into action sooner. But definitely, everyone's very excited, understanding that, you know, they're going to be able to get a home quicker, and that's a big news for a lot of first home buyers out there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's become such a entry barrier for people, as I've mentioned. It's not a silver bullet, but because the saving time, as I mentioned, for stamp duty is going to be less, people will be saving on that critical rising cost of property with less saving time. So, I mean, there's quite a benefit there.
Definitely is, mate. Definitely is. If you look at your average first home buyers and average spend on their first property, we're looking at this would reduce their saving time to by at least 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, rather significant. And is there a potential catch in the stamp duty reform?
One of the main things that we're looking at from the finance perspective is understanding that buyers also need to understand that potentially this land tax would be covered in their living, in their annual expenses. So it will potentially drop their borrowing capacity a little bit, not by a huge margin, but definitely a little bit.
And you were saying recently there are a lot of buyers who do not look at homes over $650,000 so that they can get into the market with that smaller deposit, but not too many properties these days at that price point.
Absolutely. I think, especially in the last 2 years, that's really taken a hit. And we're seeing from that from the data perspective as well, the number of first home buyers, your younger ones under 35, and the government's mentioned that as well. There's been a big drop in that number, towards, 70% of the first home buyers being under 35 to roughly just around 60%. So I think there's definitely a lack of options there under 650. So with the new reform, it should really open things up for them.
Okay, so phasing out stamp duty is going to reduce the deposit hurdle, which is a major barrier for first home buyers. How much do you think of a bump in the number of people now getting into the market that you'll start to see benefiting from this move?
Mate, we're already seeing that people calling in, clients that we would have spoken to over the last 6 to 12 months who didn't have that deposit just yet. Now they are getting very excited. So we are hoping for a significant increase. Ideally, it should double the number of first home buyers that we look at next year. And that's just a very conservative guess because there are a lot of first home buyers in that boat with savings of just under 50,000. When they don't have to fork out an additional 20 or 30,000 in stamp duty, they're pretty much ready to buy a house.
Wow, that's quite significant. So doubling the amount of people that you're going to see. And another thing that I hadn't considered is that stamp duty has been deterring families from moving house when, for example, they might have got a new job, perhaps in another city. They wanted to take the job, but the whole move with the stamp duty had been a factor for them not moving to a better job, unaffordably able to move to another city.
Absolutely. And that's a big one because I like the government's intention here because it's a bit of good news paired with all the other things that are happening in the market with interest rates and everything. So if we are allowing more property transactions, allowing people to move for a job, for family, it does create a bit more churning of properties in the market, which is all good for the economy.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Jazz, for coming on to the Real Estate Podcast, and good luck with the new clientele. By the sound of it, you're going to be kept busy.
Thanks, Greg. No, we're definitely looking forward to it, mate.
From first home buyers to property investors and everything in between. Every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
And the Hunter Valley is where it is all happening, of course. A fantastic winter getaway 2-night stay we are giving to one lucky Breakfast Club member. We have buddied up with the Hunter Valley Wine and Tourism Association. You know, Katie Lee, we couldn't be doing this without you.
Oh, good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me again. Look, I am honoured to be here talking about this beautiful destination and this amazing prize that one lucky winner is going to receive.
So you've got another little piece to the magical trip away to the Hunter Valley.
I do. And this one involves a little bit of exercise, but you don't have to do too much. It's a self-guided cycle tour with Sutton Estate Hunter Valley. You can set the degree of difficulty to whatever you would like, but they are electric bikes. So if you don't want to do any pedaling, you just crank that on full and you barely have to do the work.
Never been on an electric bike, funnily enough, so I'm sure there's plenty of people that haven't. It's one way to sort of get on a bike and get pedaling or just sit back and relax.
Yeah, exactly, Craig. And the good thing about this, Craig, is that there is actually a bike trail around Hermitage Road, which is where Sutton Estate are located. You can find a cluster of cellar doors along this track, including Scarborough and Hermitage, Thomas Wines, Four Pines at the Brewery. There's so much to see and do. You can make your way at your own leisure along this track, stop off for some cellar door tasting experiences, for some lunches, or just if you want to do a quick bite to eat, you can stop in at Four Pines, have a beer, explore the farm and get back on the bike.
We feature market updates, interviews and trends. It's your real estate podcast for breakfast.
All right, thank you, Katie. And here is today's secret word, and it is electric. Write it down because you need 7 of those to go into the draw.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.